was thinking that how happy I'd be if I saw Walz walked out of the Capitol in handcuffs.
Oh, okay.
Marched, I think is the word, Joe. Marched. Yeah.
That's your fantasy of the day?
I was thinking about it on the service road of life. More than $1 billion has been stolen from the taxpayer. I have a good explanation of that.
That we know of.
Yeah, I have a good explanation of that from an emailer. Oh, shoot. Where is it? Rook, will you do me a favor?
Go.
Did I leave copy in the printer out there?
I'm sure.
An emailer broke it down. Each taxpayer in the state has been affected by that. Oh, shoot.
So he has the figures on how much it cost each of us?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's it. Thank you. Okay. This is from Kelly in Cross Junction, Virginia.
Cool.
Calculating the cost of fraud in Minnesota. I know you're not a fan of math, but on account of you want to know why? I thought it would be insightful to see the actual calculated monetary impact of fraud on Minnesotans and the people of Mankato. Why the distinction? They're Minnesotans too. I asked Google and Microsoft AI tools for help. Question. Because of Walz's $1 billion in fraud, how many dollars per Minnesotan does that come out to? And how many dollars per actual taxpayer does that render? Answer. There are 5.83 million people in the state of Minnesota, so that amounts to about $171 per person. In Minnesota, there are 2.9 million taxpayers, which means each taxpayer paid $344 of the fraud. Conclusion, most Minnesota taxpayers view $344 as a trivial amount, and they are too morally bankrupt to give a rip, preferring to lose that money than have to suffer a fiscally sound conservative alternative. Regarding the 1.6 million food fraud scandal in Mankato, that was $1.6 million, 1.6 million children fed. There are about 7,770 children under the age of 18 in the Mankato area. That comes to 205 meals per child, which would be 3 square meals a day for 68 days. If only half the kids ate the meals, that comes out to 411 meals per child, or 3 square meals for 137 days per child. Always at the mayor's service, Kelly Wing in Cross Junction, Virginia. So he's right. Minnesotans. It's like when the school board, both of which, Minneapolis and St. Paul, are populated by people who have had no experience doing anything in life, much less budgeting large amounts of money. It's like when they say, well, we need another 36 million, and the newspapers enable them by conveniently pointing out, well, that's only going to be about $166 per house. Things like that. The trouble is that $166 per house has been adding up over the last 25 years.
It's a union trick.
It's been $166 a year for 25 years.
Because your base keeps
now
going
where
up.
are you?
Right. You're screwed.
And I dispute the fact that some think that's a trivial amount of money.
It's not trivial at all.
That's a nice trip to the grocery store.
That's right. No, I've been thinking about all of this on the service road of life. And I've been, I think, by my standards, very charitable to our governor. I have always said I really don't think he's putting anything in his pocket. Okay. And I got to thinking about that. And if you think back over his behavior and the behavior of his family, during the George Floyd week of rioting and disruption, his wife actually said, I had to open the window so that I could smell the
tires burning.
The tires burning and the smoke from the destruction caused by the rioters. The clear implication being that she was on the side of the rioters. Then you had her daughter. All of this is true. You had the Walz daughter. Her name is Hope. And she's of age, so she's a fair game for commentary. You had his daughter, presumably, if not with the permission of her father, certainly the knowledge of her father, listening to his phone calls to such a degree that she was able to inform various factions of the rioters who she apparently was plugged into.
She was tipping them off via social media.
Right. She was tipping off rioters as to the presence or non-presence of the National Guard. That's untoward of her. So what kind of guy is he? If the family was rooting for the rioters, and I'm comfortable saying they were, look at the way Walz delayed doing anything about it. He only did something about it when it became evident to him that he better politically act. If the family was entirely comfortable with that, it's my suspicion that they've been entirely comfortable with $1 billion of tax money being stolen, because in their estimation, it's probably going to the right people. People who've been marginalized and sold us this BS about how if we challenge them, we're racist and discriminatory and all of this other nonsense. So I'm still not prepared to say Walz is putting money in his pocket. But he has not displayed enough intensive anger that the people he's hired have completely mucked up the whole operation of the state of Minnesota. Department of Human Services, Department of Education. The frauds are endless. The attorney for the state of Minnesota now, the federal attorney, is Joe Thompson, has said, we've only hit the tip of the iceberg here. Yes. This money is continuing to flow out of the state capitol.
His direct quote, I believe, a week ago, because we played that in your absence with Miss Collin, basically saying Minnesota has a massive fraud problem.
We lead the country in fraud.
We're number one.
We're number one in something. We're a trans refuge state. We're an abortion refuge state. We're a fraud state. We have become unrecognizable to many of the people in this state. And yet this cockwomble of a fellow, you should look that word up, he wants to run again. How could he possibly be elected? Do the people of Minnesota... Here's the problem. If I criticize Walz, I'm seen as being pro-Trump. That's what the world's come to.
If you rip Walz, you're pro. Okay.
That's how the world... That's what's happened to the United States. Yeah. If you point out something common sense that's wrong and it's being driven by the party that calls himself the DFL, you obviously are a pro-Trumper. People have lost sight of the idea of taking things as they come. The fraud in Minnesota has nothing to do with Trump. The fraud in Minnesota has been engineered by the people that Walz has installed in positions of responsibility and authority, and they have completely failed at those jobs. A Department of Human Services director has bailed. A Department of Education director has bailed. They've been replaced. Those frauds have continued. The people Walz has put in place have completely failed, and Walz has shown no remorse. He puts on a little stage theatric face and said, I think these frauds are terrible and these people should be punished. And in the meantime, it keeps happening. There's been no intensity for him that this is the biggest problem in the state of Minnesota that he governs. None. And he's coasting along because there just is no public cry of outrage. There is nobody taking to the streets and saying this must stop. It's mind-boggling that people just continue to put up with this. And as I say, if he was let out of there in handcuffs, marched out in handcuffs, I think justice will have been served. And you can march him out in handcuffs even though he hadn't stolen any money. He's responsible for this. These are his people. Here. He's the boss. These are the people he hired, and they continue to fail day after day after day. And nothing seems to happen. And
why is there no urgency?
I have no idea. I don't know what's happened to this state. Somebody sent me this. It's from the American Thinker. And it's written by someone named Eric Utter, Utter. It was written July 23rd, yesterday. In case you can't tell, I'm working on a new tourism slogan for the North Star State. Minnesota, come for the high taxes, stay for the road construction. Another one, Minnesota, come for the mosquitoes and zebra mussels, stay for the insane leftist polities. No? How about Minnesota, come for the deer ticks and Lyme disease, stay for the incredibly bad weather. That doesn't work either? Okay. Speaking of boats, Minnesota has a ton of them, atop many of its 10,000, actually 11,842 lakes. It is a physically diverse and beautiful state. Some of its vistas are breathtaking. The air used to be clean before the Canadian wildfire smoke that is now ubiquitous. And the fishing is great. And yet, it now appears possible, if not likely, that a radical Muslim Marxist will soon be the mayor of Minneapolis, the state's biggest city. The once vibrant town that was once called the City of Lakes is now the City of Leftists. The Twin Cities area is host to a large and growing population of Muslim. Yet it also sports one of the largest LGBTQ communities in the U.S. Something will have to give there at some point. Well, that's a good point. Muslims and the LGBT crew, that's not a good fit.
They're not going to be able to
They don't pair
coexist.
well
That's
together.
not a good fit. And now the always liberal city seems to be on its way to being overrun with Marxists. It's not bad enough that it sparked the George Floyd riots. Minnesota was once the land of Minnesota Nice, where people could live the good life, as per a Time magazine cover, with then-Governor Wendy Anderson pictured in a boat holding up a northern pike. And now it is known for Representative Ilhan Omar and Governor Tim Walz. Moreover, it is an abortion sanctuary, a transgender sanctuary, and an illegal alien sanctuary. That is an immoral trifecta if I've ever seen one. So speaking of zebra mussels, and in keeping with the hyper-inclusive sanctuary theme, proposed the governor officially and proudly pronounced the state to be an invasive species sanctuary. Minnesota, come for the Eurasian milfoil and round goby. Stay for Omar Fateh and Ilhan Omar. Now, that's a good phrase, comrade. I don't know who this guy was. He was having a little fun with the... We've worn out the idea that we're clinging to a 55, 54, 3-year-old picture of Wendy Anderson on the cover of Time magazine. We've extensively gone through that and parsed it on the show. We've gone through that. In fact, the fellow who wrote the article recently died. Could someone help me with that? He was an American essayist. Who wrote the Time magazine article featuring Governor Wendell Anderson on the cover?
That was Norman Rockwell.
No, but it was like Norman Rockwell. The fellow who wrote it has recently died. We're a long way from that, and it doesn't do us any good to even bring it up anymore because we're so far from that, and we're generationally so far from it that no young people even remember that.
Yesterday, your governor,
Yeah.
Tim Walz, issued the following statement via the social
You
media.
have to speak up a little. Seriously, I can't hear you.
Okay. The governor, Tim
Yeah.
Walz, you've been mentioning him. He issued this following statement via social media yesterday. Minnesota just ranked in the top 5 states for quality of life. No matter what happens in Washington, we're still focused on making Minnesota the best place to live, work, and raise a family.
Well, you're not doing that, Tim. You're failing miserably at that.
And driving businesses away and driving residents away. Joe, do you think he's guilty of knowing about the fraud and not doing anything, or do you think he's guilty of being a dumbass and not realizing what's going on right under his nose?
A.
Okay.
John, did you find his name?
They're not giving it up easy.
Yeah, I know. Every
You care to
story I have.
expound on that? Why do you think that he knew?
Chuck Rohr.
Based
Chuck
on,
Rohr.
again, going back to the behavior of his entire family during the George Floyd week, I am suspicious that he knows that the fraud is happening. He probably is safeguarding his own innocence by not participating in it or taking any money, but he's been looking the other way, allegedly. He's been
I'm still
looking the other
trying.
way.
I'm trying to figure out who he is because on the campaign trail, he was obviously an idiot and a liar. But then he goes to China all the time. What's going on there? Is he playing an idiot, acting the idiot, or is he really an idiot and being used by China? You know, I can't nail this guy down. I know I hate him. That's all I know. I don't trust him. I think he's a liar.
Kenny, what's the difference between idiot and knucklehead? Because
Is it Lance Morrow I'm thinking of? Lance Morrow, who might have written the...
I believe the name I'm finding is Greg Wierzinski.
It's not him.
No?
It's
Okay.
not. It's Lance Morrow, I think.
Okay.
Look up Lance Morrow, Rook.
Okay.
And see if he just died recently.
Lance
I
Morrow.
believe it was Lance Morrow. But again, we're a long way from Wendy holding up the walleye. That's a fond memory that we have. There's no connection to this state now to that era.
Underneath that tweet that I just read from Governor Walz, someone that I follow posted the following tax rates compared to Iowa, Nebraska, Indiana, basically other states in the Midwest. Dear God.
Well, we're about in the top 5 highest tax states, I believe.
State income tax in Minnesota, 9.85. State sales tax, 8.13. State capital gains tax is 9.85. And corporate income tax is 9.85. Mm-hmm. That's criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Joe John was right. It's the Wierzinski guy.
No, it's Lance Morrow. Joe's right. I just
What the
It
hell?
is Lance Morrow.
Lance Morrow, the author of the 73 Time magazine article about Minnesota, featuring Governor Wendy Anderson on the cover, was the author.
Yeah.
Lance Morrow.
When did he die? It was recently.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why are we so hyper-focused on something that doesn't matter? Can we move along?
Because I'm fact-based and I'm proud of myself and I remember the author's
Anyway.
name.
December of 2024.
Yeah, he just
He was
died.
85 years of age.
Yeah.
And as someone points out with the tax rates, that fraud ain't going to pay for itself.
But that's still a memory for national correspondents. They like to drag out Wendy holding up the walleye and then saying, look at your state now. I think it's time for us to move beyond Wendy holding up the walleye. We've got